Hey everybody, David, the AI Guide, welcoming you to Tuesday, episode 2 of the AI Guide. Last time we talked about the origin of computers because AI is software that needs a computer to run on. And this time we're going to talk about the origin of AI. But computers, as we talked about last time, were first invented back in the early 1800s by Charles Babbage for hardware and Ada Lovelace for software. And then there was about a 100-year gap and we get to the late 1930s. So about 100 years later, when Harvard was inventing the Mark I and Alan Turing was inventing the Turing machine. And the reason was to help fight the war against the Germans and to keep supply ships in the Atlantic from being sunk. So computers really got going, let's say, in the 1940s when they got to a practical application, and that was code breaking, but they could also do mathematical computation. So it wasn't very long after that AI started. In fact, not long at all. So AI started by John McCarthy in 1955 is when he coined the term artificial intelligence, which we abbreviate to AI. And the idea was to create a computer intelligence as smart as a human. Now, another man named Marvin Minsky had actually been working on neural networks, which we'll talk about later, before that, as early as 1951. So that was very shortly after the invention of the modern mechanical computer, not digital, mechanical computer. And then the real kickoff of AI was in 1956 at Dartmouth College. John McCarthy organized a conference. And at that conference were the 5 leading people of AI in its very, very early stages. And this was the year 1956. And forgive me, I'm going to read this, but it was John McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, Alan Newell, Herbert Simon, and Arthur Samuel. And they were from universities, and Arthur Samuel worked at IBM in what came to be called the Watson Research Center. So these 5 guys got together at Dartmouth College in 1956, and they formally kicked off AI. And one of the things that formally kicked off AI was AI's first use, which was in gaming. So they built an AI to play checkers, which was the easiest one to build because checkers has very set rules and a set board, and there's not much difficulty in checkers once you understand it. And then over the ensuing years, during the rest of the 1950s and into the 60s, other games were developed that AI could play, ultimately leading to chess. But human players were still much, much better than the AI. But there was huge fascination at the time this happened. At the time, the conference in 1956, there was a lot of media coverage during the conference and after the conference, and great excitement about AI. And there was a lot of hype that kept building and building all the way through the rest of the 1950s and into the 1960s. But there was a limitation back at that time. And AI needs a very powerful computer to run well. And computers weren't that powerful back then. They were relatively new. Even into the 60s, there were mainframe computers being developed. That was pretty much all there was back then. And they were huge. They would take up entire rooms or entire floors of buildings. But their computational power and memory were limited. So AI really didn't develop much past these early games. And a lot of the research that was being done by these 5 leaders of AI was being funded by the government. So by the time we get to 1970, 1971, there got to be real disillusionment because computers just weren't powerful enough yet to make AI really do what it ultimately would be able to do. And the government pulled their funding. So that triggered what is called the first AI winter. And that means that the funding stopped and a lot of the research stopped. Next time in episode 3, we're going to talk more about what AI actually is, and we'll learn a lot together then. Thank you so much for watching my channel, and if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, and we'll talk to you on Saturday for episode 3.